Hello, all you happy crumpin' wargamers. I am your host, Jonathan Arkin, and today we have a fairly quick video coming your way. I'm going to finally be talking about 10th edition. I've had several people message me, ask me why I'm not talking about 10th edition, and the reality of the situation is until very recently, we really have not had enough information about 10th edition Warhammer 40,000 to really talk about anything more than what the article's already said, and you guys can read that yourselves. But today, I think we have got enough where we can just start introducing how to prepare for 10th edition. So let's get into it. All right, today we're talking about prepping for 10th. And this is a pretty scary subject for a lot of people because people are thinking, oh, I've spent the last 3 years of my life learning how to play 9th edition. I just figured it out. Now we get a new edition. Well, first off, have no fear because you now have Happy Crumpin' Wargaming, and we will have an entire complete fundamentals to play series that will teach you A to B, A to Z, exactly how to play 10th edition. I got you, fam. All right, but moving on into what we're doing right now to prepare for 10th. As most of you know, I'm on the WTC team for Team Norway, and all my teammates and I, we've been preparing ruthlessly for the last year, trying to get ready for this massive WTC team tournament. And basically every other country that's attending are in the exact same situation. And we're all kind of nervous and excited at the same time about the release of 10th edition. Because we've been prepping for a year using 9th edition rules, but then we're expected to perform at an exceptionally high level in 10th edition, a month, 2 months after the edition release. And that can be very intimidating. So how am I prepping, and how are my teammates prepping, and how do I recommend all of you prep? Well, the reality of the situation is pretty dang simple. The fundamentals of the game of Warhammer 40,000 are essentially staying the same. There's really nothing radically different, even though there's going to be plenty of differences. That can be a little confusing. I'm going to walk you on through it, though. The reality of the situation is that a dice roll, you still have a 16.667% chance of any dice roll occurring. Let me make sure I spelled that correctly. I'm a chiropractor, not a spellopractor. So if you roll a dice, you have a 16.66% chance of making a 6 come up. That's not changing. Okay, it's possible that they maybe throw a curveball and they reintroduce scatter dice or something like that. I really hope they don't, but it's possible. But the reality is that in 10th edition of Warhammer 40,000, we are not moving to a D8 system. We are not moving to a D10 system. It is still a D6 system. So no stress there. Mathematical calculations will remain the same. Then we're going to have a couple different actions that can be taken in the game. We can do movement, we can do psychic, we can do shooting, we can charge, we can fight, and we can take morale. Out of these, only 2 of these categories have changed, and that's going to be our psychic and our morale. Our psychic is changed a little bit, but not really. It's just distributed throughout all the other phases. So if I'm playing my orcs and I want to cast the jump to teleport my units, I still do that spell, I just don't do it in the psychic phase. Now chances are very high it's going to be done in the movement phase. If any of you play Age of Sigmar, it's going to be psychic abilities look similar to that, if I'm not mistaken. Of course, I'm not an expert on Age of Sigmar, so maybe I just said something stupid. Don't hate me there. But so if you're going to cast your smite, that's going to be done in the shooting phase. Right? So you guys can kind of understand what I'm saying. All the psychic abilities will just be distributed throughout the rest of the phases. It's not that big a change. We're just not going to have a dedicated psychic phase, which will change the game for sure, but it's not necessarily going to change anything so dramatic that you're going to have to relearn the game. Then morale. Now, morale is changing. And I got to be honest, I think morale is probably the only area of the game where I am concerned. I don't necessarily like the concept of the battle shock test. I am willing to be proven wrong. Maybe it's awesome. I think it's very scary how it's going to change the game. But you know what? We don't have all the information. But it will change morale in a very dramatic way. Suddenly, that if you fail your battle shock test, suddenly your unit of Gretchen or whatever are not going to be doing the action to score you points anymore. So that actually will fundamentally change how the game is played with the implementation of battle shock. And we're going to cover that ad nauseum, so don't worry, we'll get into it. So I'm a little bit concerned about morale. But shooting is the same. Charging is going to be the same. Fighting is going to be the same. There's going to be a little bit of a difference with the combat maneuvers that you can do since you can't consolidate unless you end in base combat anymore. So there'll be a few slight differences, but the fundamentals of the game are going to be the same. So if you're a good 9th edition player, you're going to be a good 10th edition player. So my recommendation for all of you is make sure that you are getting your reps in if you're trying to prepare for 10th. Get really good at 9th. That's all those skills are going to translate very, very well into 10th edition. Second thing that we need to make sure that we do is, this is the mistake that everyone makes in 9th edition, is we all made the same mistakes. We didn't really learn the rules. And the reason for that is because the 9th edition rules got very convoluted, and we didn't have what's called universal rules. So every codex had their own specifically named rules, like demons would have warp strike instead of a deep strike. And it was very silly, and it made it very challenging for people to actually grasp all the rules of the game, because there's 23 different names for the same ability. Well, 10th edition is going to make this a lot easier. So it's going to be much easier to learn the rules. So what I have here is I have an entire glossary of the new terms that we have found. I'll just read them out here. So a critical hit is just a 6 to hit. A critical wound is just a 6 to wound. Now, typically, critical hits and critical wounds don't do anything unless there's an additional ability on the weapon, right? So the ability sustain hits is old exploding hits. So instead of being worded in 23 different ways, exploding hits is now called sustained hits. And it's always going to be called sustained hits on whatever weapon profile in whatever codex it's associated to. That's going to be very useful. Lethal hits. Critical hits will auto wound, which just means that a 6 to hit will count as a wound roll. Critical wound, we're going to talk about that one. Devastating wounds. Critical wounds will deal mortal wounds in addition, equal to the damage value. Not in addition, equal to the damage value. So if I have an autocannon and my damage is 2 and I wound you on a 6 and I have devastating wounds, that's going to cause 2 mortal wounds, which is terrifying. Anti-XY. When attacking an X unit, a wound roll of Y is a critical wound. So let's say you have anti-vehicle 5. Means that no matter, and it's a super like magical bolter or something, and this bolter is made to kill vehicles. I don't know, it seems silly, but it's Warhammer 40,000. It can happen. Well, this bolter, whenever it hits, if it's anti-vehicle 5, every single time that bolter rolls a 5, it's going to wound the vehicle regardless of the vehicle's toughness. And it's going to count as a critical wound. So if it also causes mortals or something, that can be very cool. So this is actually going to be, I think, one of the more important words. So keywords, everyone's going to have to understand the way that anti operates in the game. Twin linked, reroll wound rolls. Can be very, very simple. Deadly demise, number of mortals when a vehicle explodes. Okay. Firing deck X, number of models that can shoot. So this is going to be very cool because vehicles are going to have limits on the amount of units that can actually fire out of them. And I actually think that's a pretty neat little implementation. Rapid deployment, unit can disembark but not charge after vehicle advances. And as far as I can tell, so far it looks like most transports are going to have this ability. And then we have the assault ramp, which is you can disembark and charge after the vehicle moves. So finally, the humble Land Raider is going to have its day. Land Raiders are going to be spammed. We already know this, that Land Raiders are going to have a place. I'm sure GW can find a way to ruin them because they've done a great job of ruining Land Raiders. But for right now, they're actually looking quite good. Rapid fire X, when in half range, X number of extra shots. Very simple. We all know how rapid fire doesn't change. Assault, you can advance and shoot. Pretty dang simple. The only difference there is it doesn't specify that you're going to be suffering any minuses to hit. Heavy, if you remain stationary, +1 to hit. This is very cool because what it means is you don't necessarily get the penalties just for playing with your models. Or just playing with your heavy weapon models. Instead, you get benefits for fulfilling a certain criteria. And I really, really enjoy the concept of you get your benefits by fulfilling a criteria. I think they just released a beautiful concept with Guard the other day where they were saying Imperial Guard's Born Soldiers works as 6s to hit, or basically are all 6s to hit. Critical hits will have lethal hits. So critical hits auto wound, but only if they remain stationary, which allows Imperial Guard to have a huge damage boost, but at the same time, they have to do something to earn it. They don't just get it. And I think if we see that type of criteria for earning your special power going forward, I think it's going to make the game a lot more interesting, and I'm really excited about that change. Then we've got Melta X damage when in half range. Can be very, very easy. So you can have your Melta 4, which would be a heavy Melta rifle. You can have Melta 2, which is be a normal Melta. I think it's going to clarify things very easily. Ignore cover. Don't get benefits cover. Very simple. And then Torrent, which is auto hitting. And that just seems to always be flamers. So these actual keywords, it's going to be, I know it might look intimidating, but we have how many here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. We get 17 words. If you can memorize those 17 keywords, you're going to know all the profiles in the game. That is exciting. Now, I'm sure there's going to be more keywords that get added, but when you think of it that way, memorizing 17 keywords is a heck of a lot easier than memorizing, I don't know, 20 million that we currently have. Terrain is changing as well. Terrain looks to be getting significantly more simple. I'm actually not going to talk too much about terrain right now, but it looks like we're no longer going to have dense terrain, and then the way it works is just going to be a little bit more simple as well. So then we are going to memorize these terms, and we're going to be ready to hit the ground running when 10th edition actually gets rolled out. Mathematics. Guys, listen, mathematics are the same. They don't change. Your statistical probability are going to remain the same. What's going to change is going to be the profiles of certain weapons. So, for example, a power fist is now going to be AP2, not AP3. This will change the way that you build expectations for a unit of Terminators with power fist. Definitely, of course it will. But it's not going to change the way that you actually calculate how much damage are done. So when we get worried about our 9th edition evolving into 10th edition, let's get rid of a few words that we don't need to have. 1, mathematics. The rules of mathematics don't change. That's pretty easy. 2, having to memorize all these millions of new rules, not really, because we're getting universal names for special rules, which is going to actually simplify the game a lot. Or simplify is the wrong term. It's going to streamline the game a lot. I actually think GW did a really good job when they said that we're streamlining, not simplifying. We're simplified, not simple. Or however they phrased it. I don't know. If that's the way that they're simplifying, I love it. I'm on board with it. Because remember, I actually love the fact that Warhammer 40,000 is complicated. I like the fact that it's a complicated game. But I'm also totally on board with streamlining the special abilities, which I think that's beautiful. All right, movement is going to essentially remain the same. Shooting is essentially remaining the same. Fighting is essentially remaining the same. There's going to be small details in each one of these categories. And trust me, I've got you. I will be making big videos on all of them. But for right now, what I want you to focus on is learning how to play 9th edition better. If you can play 9th edition better, you will be way better when 10th edition rolls out. Okay? Check out these glossary. Check out all the new terms. Make sure you get these stuck into your head so that when new ones are released, it'll be much easier to put them into your head. Guys, and you'll be ready to go. Guys and gals, we are going to be crumping every single day as soon as 10th edition rolls out. I am so excited for the new edition. Like I said, the only thing I'm really super concerned about right now is going to be the battle shock test, which maybe it turns out that's amazing because we just don't know everything about it yet. So I could be completely mistaken in my worries there, but we'll find out. Anyway, I am playing a bunch of 9th edition right now. I'm probably playing 3 or 4 games a week. I know I'm an addict, and not everyone has the time to be able to play that many games a week. But the better I get at 9th edition, the better I'm going to be at 10th edition. It really is that simple because the fundamentals of the game are going to remain the same. If you guys enjoy this content, please give me a like, subscribe, hit the bell button for notifications, and we will see you next time on Happy Crumpin' Wargaming. Cheers.